Hi, everyone. It's Tessa.
And Joe.
From the Unveiling Paradise podcast.
Tessa, summer is almost here, and so many of our listeners are about to have their epic destination wedding.
And we are so excited for you guys.
Before the big day, guys, we want you to make sure you listen to these 3 episodes.
Episode 62, Deep Diving Your Wedding Ceremony.
Episode 53, Questions Your Wedding Guests Will Ask.
And episode 31, the final countdown to your wedding day.
And if you're planning your wedding here in Hawaii, hit us up and ask us about our Unveiling Paradise podcast promo.
Happy planning. Hey, Jet Setters, welcome back to another episode of Unveiling Paradise. Hi, Joe.
What's up, Tessa?
How's it going?
Super good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm really excited about today's topic. We are talking about rentals. So if we take a step back, right, once you book your venue, there are certain things that your venue comes with. And again, depending on your venue, some come with more, some come with others. For example, if you're at a hotel, you assume that you are going to have a roof over your head, bathrooms, plates, forks, knives, all of those things.
Kitchens.
If you are at a venue like a park or an outdoor space, you could have maybe a covering. You may have bathrooms, or you may have literally just grass. And so today I'm really excited that we have our good friend, president of Accel Events and Tents, Gabrielle Richter. Welcome, Gabby. I call her Gabby. Is that okay?
That's acceptable. Absolutely. Hi, guys. How are you? I'm so excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. So one thing that I want to say about Gabby that I love is that she's Canadian, and I love Canadians. But I'm going to hand it over to her and let her talk about herself other than the fact that she is Canadian, which I'm obsessed with.
I love that you love us Canadians. We're just good people.
You are good people. That's why I'm so obsessed.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're an honorary. So
thank you.
I'm so happy to be here today, guys. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a Canadian gal. I've been living in Hawaii now for 6 years with my family. I've got 2 young keiki. We feel so honored to be living in this community and working in this community. A couple of years ago, I took over Accel Events and Tents. It's the largest event rental company in the States. So we have full operations on Oahu and on Maui, largest quantity of rentals, largest fleet, largest crew size. And we love and are honored to be able to help Hawaii gather.
So what is a rental company? Like, what do you guys do?
Ooh, that varies a little bit with different companies. So my company provides tents, tables, chairs, catering equipment. We have porta potties even now, your forks, your knives, your napkins. We are what you'd call a full service party rental company. There are party rental companies that are smaller, more niche, so maybe more the decor side. There are party rental companies that are really just the tenting side. So we are full service and we try to provide the tent and everything under it, but of course also provide rentals to non-tenting venues.
So you literally could show up to an empty park or someone's backyard and provide everything.
We provide everything, and we do it a lot. So last year, for instance, we serviced 4,000 events across Hawaii.
Holy cow.
So that's major. So we are out and operating across islands all the time. Like I said, we service mostly Oahu and Maui, but we do business on Big Island, Lanai, and Kauai. So last year was busy for us, 4,000 events, and we're looking to do the same business this year.
That's insane.
This is going to be such a great show for the fact that I think when people start planning their weddings, and I know I was in this space myself when I first started planning a wedding, I thought, oh my gosh, all the things that you need to make this event happen, rentals is a huge piece of that puzzle. So
it's a doozy. I mean, depending on your venue, it is a major part for you to consider.
Yeah, so let's get into this. Today we're talking about your must-have rentals for your wedding day. Let's get started.
Welcome to Unveiling Paradise, your go-to destination wedding podcast. I'm Tessa, wedding planner and owner of Fred & Kate Events.
And I'm Joe, wedding and adventure photographer of Joseph Esser Photography. We are based in Hawaii, one of the biggest, most popular locations for destination weddings.
We want to share our real-life experiences with you, give you insight from a professional's perspective, and still make sure you're having fun in the process.
We're huge believers in the fact that planning a destination wedding can be one of the most amazing experiences, and we want to bring you along.
We're so excited to talk with you about weddings, Hawaii, and everything else under the sun.
So pack your bags and let's get started.
So Gabby, indoor, outdoor venues, a lot of them have different requirements, different needs. I think I want to start there, but I also want to start kind of next to that first. And it's renting versus buying. A lot of my couples, when they are looking at their budgets, when they're looking at Amazon, for example, they're like, why would I need to rent linen when I can just buy it for cheaper? And I think that's where I want to start. Why would we rent versus buying items? The bigger ones, like I'm not going to bring 30 people to set up a tent, or I'm not going to purchase huge tables, but the smaller items, what's the benefit of renting versus buying these items?
So I think when it comes to linens, for example, we do get that question a lot. First thing I'd ask is, if you're buying something online, can you ensure that it's going to be the appropriate quality? If you're getting it right before your wedding, it's very possible you might get those linens and you find out they're not the right quality, they're not the right consistency, they're not the right fabric for you. We also see times where they come damaged or they're not the right sizing. So it's worth really weighing in, is this a quality vendor that you're going to be purchasing from? I also think you need to think about, what is your utilization afterwards? Do you plan to bring these back home? Will you use these for future family events? And think about the environmental sustainability of that choice, right? We reuse our linens. Your average linen is probably getting about 10 turns. We're buying top quality linens. Our suppliers on mainland, we're bringing those in. We can attest for the quality. We know the product, and we know that we're processing them appropriately so that we can deliver them to you in fine form. They're ready to go. And then we'll take those from you and there's no environmental wastage.
Exactly. And, I have actually seen couples purchase cheap linen, 30, 40 linens, and they just throw it away at the end of the night, which again, sustainability wise, like it kind of kills me.
Okay, my wedding color is purple. I have 30 purple linens now in my house. Like, I'm never using those.
You're never going to use them. I mean, Here you go. You could now have a baby shower with a purple motif. And then when, grandma has her 100th birthday, you're also going to be rolling out purple. You're going to be committed to purple now for the rest of your adult life.
Yes.
So I have a funny story. This is awful, but I'm going to pull a joke.
What does that mean?
So my cousin actually had a wedding and she bought purple runners for her wedding, like 30, 40 of them.
Yeah.
And she's been married, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. I keep seeing them on Facebook Marketplace. Like, she has not sold them.
Right.
She has a baby. Like, she's trying to get rid of these. Like, they have not sold. So you're just stuck with these linens.
Particularly in the event, if it's a destination wedding. So we often have brides who come out here and they've made the purchase. I've had times where I've accepted Amazon deliveries to the warehouse for people. And
that's very nice of you.
I know, but we're trying to be really great partners and help our friends out. And there have been a couple of times where we've just charged for the pressing of a linen, for instance, where it's come in. So we'll try to work with the bride and groom on all their event needs. So that being said, they've arrived, and then afterwards, the bride and groom have said to me, can we sell these linens to you, or can you keep these linens? And I wouldn't bring in an item that I only have a very small amount of. It's not the right decision for our business. And so what I often see is this last minute panic. These brides and grooms are about to leave Hawaii at the end of their event, and they're trying to pawn off, whether it's glassware, I've had custom glassware, I've had chargers and linens that they've tried to sell back to me, or I'm seeing them put on Facebook or other, social media. And then there's just a panic, and often those items end up in the garbage or they're left in hotel rooms. And that's really not a sustainable business model that we want to bring to the wedding industry.
Let's be honest though, right? To actually buy those things a lot of times costs way more than if you were to rent them.
In the end, yes. I think you need to look at your time spent in doing the shop, trying to figure out what product and bringing those in, and the triaging of that product on site. Are you going to be pressing those linens yourself? They're not going to arrive in a manner that you're going to want to put them right on the table. Are you arranging for a dry cleaner or somebody to service those while you're here prior to your event? So don't just think about the quick receipt of those linens and throwing them on a table, but there is work involved before you can actually place them and have them look appropriate for your event.
Gabby, and actually I see this always go wrong. And I know Tessa and I have seen this before, where our clients will bring in their linen and they'll be bringing in like bed sheets instead of actually like appropriate linen for their tables. I mean, you've seen that before, where it's like, just they think they can just do whatever. And then you're like, oh my gosh, you could have had this beautiful, like elegant wedding and it looks super tacky.
I think we have to be really wary of fabric and upholstery choices online. When they arrive, you often don't have the same integrity of the fabric. They're thinner. Oftentimes they're, almost near transparent, where you can see through to the table. And I have many times been asked same day, can you provide us the linens? The ones that we ordered aren't going to pan out for us.
I think for most of our couples, the sheer size and scope of planning a wedding sometimes is just overwhelming. There's so many different vendors and services that you need to book in order to pull off your wedding day. Let's talk about rentals. Let's break this down into sort of a digestible, easy checklist of what do you need if you're doing a wedding outdoors or indoors. Help us in starting to create that checklist for rentals and what you're going to need for your wedding.
I think you took it to the right starting place. What's your venue?
Yeah.
What does your venue allow? What does your venue require? If you are in the back hills of Kualoa, you're going to need to start by thinking about your tent. Unless you really want to roll the dice, you're going to need to start by thinking about your tent. Whereas if you're in a hotel room, you're thinking more about like the background accoutrement. Maybe it's about decor and, enhancements to the table. So we start with the venue and we work our way from there. I also think it's really important to come to the table with your top priorities, your must-haves. So we have a bride we're working with right now. Her top priority for the entire day, number one, is she wants to make sure that her beautiful new shoes stay clean and gorgeous looking. And so we're like, okay, we got to think about the dance floor choice. We need to think about, flooring in her tent because it's all about the shoes.
Wait, she's an outdoor venue and she wants to make sure.
She has an outdoor venue and she really wants to make sure her shoes. So we're like, okay, we can provide flooring in the tent. So what is important to the actual bride and groom? What's critical to them when they, close their eyes and think about their wedding experience? What do they envision? Sometimes I absolutely say, do a mood board, go through your different sources, figure out what's important to you, put together a visual, and you can give that mood board or you can give that, Pinterest board to your rental company and say, hey, this is my inspo. Can you take this now and turn it into a look? And we love that. We love being able to take that look and say, okay, we're going through our line of products. And actually, we would recommend using this goblet. We think you should use this throw pillow. And we can craft that vision knowing our products in a way that's probably easier than doing the reverse, right? So bring your rental company to the table. Start with your venue, your top priorities, what are your must-haves for your wedding, and then think about what is that vision? What is the mood that you're trying to set? What does that look? And we can partner with you on that.
I think it's really important when we're looking at venue, especially if it's an indoor venue or a hotel, what do they provide, right? Because everyone is different. Some of them have the dance floor, but only for indoor ballrooms. So if you are at a hotel at an outdoor, you need to provide the dance floor.
Correct.
So, right, just being very clear with what does your venue provide? Do they provide outdoor chairs or only indoor chairs, right? Because if you're doing it outdoors, then we need to rent for that, but not for your indoor reception. So again, I think that is a great place to start and then taking that next step.
When you're going through your contracting process with your venue, you need to go line by line through all of the different items provided. Okay, if you are providing chair, what is your chair? And then as a bride or groom, do you like that chair? Do you need to cover that chair? Do you need to put a sash around that chair? Do you want to swap out the chair entirely? Look at each piece. Sometimes it's like, yes, we provide a stage, but our stage is 36 inches high and you might want something lower. So look at each one and make sure that it's the right fit for you. If not, how do you adjust it? Can you tweak it? Is it about modifying what the venue has, or is it about just swapping out entirely? I always suggest working from the biggest to the smallest and then making sure you're going through, your different vendors, you're going through all the different people who are going to play a role. And I walk through the event plan in my head. So I think, all right, I'm coming in the door. I've got my first table. I've got my registration table there. You've got to actually walk through the venue in your head if you're not in the physical location to do the planning and put together that checklist. Way too often we see people last day scrambling for the administrative tables, those ancillary tables that people don't often put top of list because they're really focused on the tables that everybody's sitting at.
Like a vendor table.
Like a vendor table.
Where do we sit at the end of the night?
Mm-hmm.
I really love what you're saying too. And a lot of times, just because you're at a hotel doesn't mean you are stuck with their tables or their chairs, right? There's a lot of times where we'll see you guys setting up big farm tables and these, Shivari chairs and everything to completely transform that space, right?
No, I agree. And I think, Gabby, you bring such a good point, right? It's what does the venue include? But understanding that even if it does include chairs, tables, do you like them? With a rental company, you can always upgrade and change it to what you want.
I mean, I think we've all seen an amazing variety of ballroom chairs over the years. And, if somebody's renovated in the last 5 years, maybe they have a more neutral chair, but sometimes the colors or the just overall design or the comfort of a chair is just not working in a ballroom, or it just doesn't align with the visual of your wedding or any wedding, frankly. A lot of those chairs look very corporate, and they're a great one to think about swapping out from the get-go. It does increase your cost, but the aesthetic changes so much. You've really enhanced the visual value of your event in a ballroom.
I think it's funny that you say that, Gabby, because there is one venue on Oahu that has these ugly orange chairs from the 70s.
Orange doesn't fit with every wedding.
Orange, and if
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and if that's your wedding color, perfect. But most people who have their wedding there, it's not their wedding color and it just clashes. And so you have to remove those chairs to make it look beautiful. And it's a beautiful venue, but the chairs are just so ugly.
And they're wide chairs. They're not standard banquet chairs, so you can't cover them. So you literally have to either be okay with them or completely swap them out. There's nothing in between. And we're not going to say the venue because it's a gorgeous venue, but it makes it tricky if they're wanting a soft, romantic, white and blush wedding.
Yeah, even for my own wedding, I got married in a ballroom, and the chairs were neutral. They were appropriate. They were fine, but I didn't think that they were quite at, I don't know, they didn't quite have the gravitas I was looking at for our wedding experience. So we sashed ours, and it was just a simple touch, and we had a little, I don't know, what do you call the bouclier in the middle? We glassed up our chairs, and you can do that. You can take a very simple neutral chair and turn it into something very elegant by way of rentals.
All right, Gabby, I know that like when you're planning your wedding, you want to make sure that your first choices are always available. I know like when we talk about photography and everything, once you find that vendor, book them. I think the same thing can be said about rentals. There are some things that are finite resources. So if you're planning an outdoor wedding and there's only so many clear top tents, you want to make sure that that's available. So what are those big items, those must-have items that might sell out or rent out the quickest?
Okay, this is a huge point, Joseph. I'm really glad you brought this up. So we are an island nation. I don't have the ability to throw something on the back of a truck in a neighbor state and just drive it across the borderline and no problem activate it. We have a finite amount of rental resources here on islands, and we work together as a rental ecosystem. We sub-rent to each other. We help each other out if we're running short. But overall, the items that sell out the most, Oahu, Maui, each of the islands for sure, number one is tenting. You want to lock down your tent quickly. And I would always recommend hold a bigger tent, anticipate that everybody's going to RSVP yes. Then it's easier for you to knock off a little bit of the size of the tent later. So hold the 40-80 if you need to. You can make it a 40-60 later. But if you've only got a 40-60 on hold, and then you need to add more square footage onto that tent, it's harder to go back later and get a bigger tent. So start with your biggest size and you can adjust later. So your tent, mission critical. Dance floors. Everybody likes to dance on island here. It's a great thing. But they sell out. They're hard to bring on island. A lot of companies have created their own construction. But that being said, we sell out. So your first items need to be your tent, your dance floor, and then you need to think about your chairs and your table. So yes, we do have a lot of tables here on island, but if you want a farm table, if you want a specialty style, that's something you should hold quickly. Likewise with chairs. There are some trendy, fashionable chairs right now that do sell out on the busy weekends here on Oahu and on Maui I can speak to. So if you have an idea already of what you have in mind, even if you haven't rounded out all of the smaller rentals, I always suggest make contact with your vendor, lock in your tent, your tables, your chairs, and your dance floor, and then you can just put them on notice that you're going to be adding all of your catering equipment, your smaller items later, but you're placing that hold with your vendor. That, for me, when I received that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to set aside 2 trucks. This is going to be 2 crews. This is what we're building out. And I've put that in our calendar. You want to place the hold. You can always adjust later. Then as you get further along in your planning cycle, you can come back and add your plates, add your chargers, add all of the smaller stuff, because we have more flexibility in those items. Start with the big stuff, put your hold down, and you can always make the adjustments later.
I totally agree. And whenever I'm working with my clients, it is that let's lock in the rentals. And I do exactly what you say, big ticket items. So tenting, lighting, dance floor, tables, chairs. Everything else we can always add later, or we can always adjust the table count, the chair count. I think a lot of people get worried that once they book it, like this is their final order. And I always assure them, like, read through the contract. It says, like, we can still make adjustments. They know when you're out, you don't have your exact guest count or know your layout, but it's locking them in.
Lock them in, and we're more than happy to tweak later. We just want to make sure we're placeholding that time, and that for us, it's about trucks and crew, right? We need to assign our teams out across the island for each day. Then I need to make sure we're looking at our inventory and that we're able to maintain every single order for those days. Here, we have the largest inventory in the state, but we still sell out of items frequently, particularly on weekends. Every Saturday, you can imagine that right across island, most of our companies are using all of our tents, all of our chairs, etc.
And so one thing that I want to kind of tie into this that I think is relevant is rain holds. So a lot of my couples like to cruise with no tent, and it gives me a heart attack. As a planner, it makes me so stressed. I know it's probably better for photos. It looks gorgeous, but I like having a tent every single time.
Tessa, do you use rain holds?
So, for me, again, as a planner, I will always say we should have a tent. But I do have the diehard holdout brides and grooms that are very much set on going no tent. With those, what I like to recommend is a rain hold or a weather hold. And what that is ordering a tent, putting it on your invoice, and holding it. So about 48 hours, and it varies by company, and venue, so you have to double check. But, normally about 48 hours out, check the weather. Do you want the tent or not? If you don't, you forfeit it and you pay only 50%. So it's a gamble. It's a gamble because if you want to keep it until the day and you don't want to set it up, that's no problem, but you are paying 100%. They are going to pack that tent, clean the tent, put it on their truck.
And we're going to hold a crew for it. So that's the other thing. We've got people on standby to deliver it. We've scheduled it accordingly.
Yeah.
But I would say, interesting fact here, out of our weather holds or rain holds, we probably move forward with at least 80% of the tents in the end. Particularly if you look at our weather systems here on island, you have these like short intermittent bursts of rain. And I think that often we get into the 48 hours before and there's, a possibility of showers. And so a lot of the folks who choose to activate that rain hold do in the end move forward. And then we've already got the tent ready to go. We've got the crew ready to service it and we can get out and put it up. Conversely, oh my gosh, guys, this is what makes me sad. We get calls on a monthly basis, unfortunately, far too often than you would imagine for people. Maybe it's just a couple of days before, even same day, state of crisis, there is rain, we need a tent immediately. And unfortunately, we don't often have the ability to service those last minute requests. So, they've played the waiting game, they've gotten to the very end, they've rolled the dice, they find out, okay, we're probably going to have rain the day of our wedding, and they're trying to make those last minute arrangements. We are a limited wedding rental ecosystem here on island. And frankly, most of us cannot activate a same day tent, whether it's not having the crew available, but more often we don't have the product available to put up last minute. And there is nothing worse than having to tell a bride or groom that we can't service last minute. And so I really want to encourage as much as possible the wedding community to say, look, rain holds are for everyone. They put everybody with peace of mind that your wedding experience is going to be sheltered from any risk or liability. And at the end of the day, you and your guests are going to be 100% dry, no matter how the weather condition turns.
I do have couples, though, that choose to go no tent. And we did have a wedding where, it was at an outdoor venue. There's no covering. And it was kind of that hurry up and wait, like, is it going to rain? Is it not? The weather forecast was kind of showing, okay,
do you look at the satellite by hour?
And literally by hour.
At 3 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, at 5 o'clock.
That's exactly what it is. So I think it was one of those where, okay, it's going to start raining by 3 o'clock. So I told everyone, don't set the tables. We're going to have to push at the last minute and just pray. And so we did. We waited until I think 3:30. We set the linens. We set everything. Ceremonies going off without a hitch. Cocktail hour happens. We're like, oh my God, we made it. We're good. And we're just about to sit down and it's storming. And again, it's like this in Hawaii, right? We have these crazy downpours where it's hard for 5-10 minutes. And then it's
gone.
Up.
And you've got blue skies 30 minutes later.
And it's perfect. Or sunset and it's gorgeous. But the problem is now it has rained hard for 5-10 minutes. Everything is soaking wet. The water glasses were automatically filled. So, great.
That's kind of a bonus though, yeah?
It is,
hey.
But we don't need staffing. We had water filled from the heavens.
but your linens are wet and
the
your
chair
chairs.
cushions are wet. Everything was wet. And so, it's funny because at an outdoor venue, and a lot of these guests, I think, are used to hotels or indoors, and they're like, hey, ma'am, can we please get another chair? Can we please get a new linen? I'm like, we don't have any more. We've ordered 2 linens extra, not 10 or 15. And so it's, it's a bummer because you're sitting there or you're asking your guests to just sit there in the wetness. And it's kind of, I think it's a bummer.
Depending on your chair, you can flip the cushion. The underside is, it has a different aesthetic value to it.
Less wet.
It's less glam. It's less wet. But really, you've spent all this time preparing for this magical day. You've invested all this time, energy, and money in getting to where you are. This one decision can play such a huge role in the success of your day. So why risk it?
Devil's advocate. I love photographing outdoor open air weddings. But I'm sold on the rain hold. I think that's so smart. It makes sense. But if you're going to do outdoor, the thing I want to say, and I'm sorry, Tessa, you're going to hate me for saying this.
Of course.
Weather is also super predictable, right? Like in the summertime, we can see if it's going to be a clear week, a week out. But, sometimes it's like, it's iffy. And you're like, okay, I would recommend having that tent. It's 2 days out. I love the rain hold, but I also love outdoor open air weddings.
And I do too. We love setting beautiful outdoor lighting installations. And when you have the right day, it is so beautiful and visually effective. However, just give yourself the peace of mind going into it, right? So you've got the backup option. And it depends on, frankly, what month you're getting married, the venue. So some of the venues here on island maybe have a little area that you can tuck away with if you had to last minute pivot into like the pavilion at one of the Kualoa venues. But depending on where you are at, the seasonality, the likelihood of rain in that kind of microclimate, if you will, of Hawaii, just get the weather hold. It's going to give you the peace of mind, and you don't need to bite your nails till the final day.
And guys, I know that we're going off topic, but I do want to kind of bring up one thing that Gabby, you just said, right? It's not just a rain hold, it's a weather hold. So even in the summer, if we know there's zero chance of rain, a lot of times if it's a very, very hot day and there's no other shade and your tent is the only thing that's going to shade your poor 95-year-old grandmother, I say we do it. Joe, you can't disagree with me on this one. You cannot disagree.
She needs my portable fan that I attached
to your bouquet.
My bouquet fan. I'm still patent pending.
Patent pending. No one steal his idea.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think that's probably, I think more people are freaked out about rain than too much sun. But it does, I mean, like having a tent does, again, protect from those elements too. So I'm not going to argue with you.
Thank you.
Love all the grandmas.
Say you have a group of us pale-skinned Canadians who want to be sheltered because our skin might not be able to handle 2 hours out in the sun, 3, etc. You know, it's really nice to have that weather option also.
We have to protect our Canadians. Done.
This is what, so I sat with my team this morning and we talked shop about this particular, you know, what are the things that we see? What are the things that we get last minute calls for? And what information do we want to provide the community? This is your list. So we were all on the same page. One, a lot of times people they're not ordering sufficient lighting. So, you know, they're anticipating maybe there's more lighting at the venue than there actually is. Make sure as you're planning, particularly for an outdoor event, that, you know, do you have lighting over a food station? Do you have appropriate lighting at a bar? It's not just about under the tent, but all the lighting infrastructure for the event. So it's, you know, safe pathways, and there's a lot of, you know, great lighting for photography, et cetera. So do think about your lighting, and a lot of our Oahu companies have gorgeous chandeliers and uplights and things that you can add to create a really gorgeous look out of your event, and lighting's a great way to do it at a lower cost. You want other things on our list?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the not so sexy things like trash bins. For some reason, people forget that you need to have receptacles at your event. And it's, again, not just for, you know, the heart of house where any server is going to be clearing their stuff, but even at the front, you need to make sure you've got enough waste baskets. And we get a lot of same day runs across the island with trash baskets. And it's like the weirdest thing to have to run. Also, some venues, it's who's collecting the garbage at the end of the night. So do ask that question when you're doing your venue walkthrough and you're contracting. Depending on the venue here on island, often you're expected to remove the garbage at the end of your night. Our company provides that service. So make sure you know who's going to be handling that. Extra tableware. If there is one thing I need everybody to understand, that if you have 45 people coming to your event, if you have 100, you shouldn't just order enough for that 100 people. You need to anticipate breakage. You know, there's often times that something's going to fall off the tray or off a table and you're going to need to replace that. But also, like, Auntie's going to drop her fork. And if that was the last fork, then you're going to have to go service that behind the scenes and bring it back. So always add extra. And we're actually really surprised how much we get this. So, you know, events that are for 100 people, order enough silverware for 100 people. That's it. And then there's always a runaround for, you know, whether it's serving spoons, whether it's just the extras on the side. Just give yourself a little, you know, 5-10% extra set, so you've got some flexibility. So you've got things thought about, like, you know, your dessert forks. And, you know, when Auntie drops her fork, there is a fresh one ready for her. We're not having to run back behind the scenes and clean the one single fork that was left.
So it's funny because I have a wedding this weekend and the bride and I kept going back and forth. She kept lowering her flatware count to her exact guest count. And so I called the rental company and kept increasing it. And she kept decreasing it. And I don't think we realized we were doing it. And so finally I got on the phone. I'm like, are you lowering your guest count, or is it a computer error? She's like, oh no, I only have 90 people.
So do not get 90 forks. We're telling you, get your backup.
She kept getting 90 forks, 90 plates, and so I upped it to 100, and she kept dropping it.
You know, you are going to have a server that, you know, drops a couple of plates potentially. You don't want those to be the last plates that you had at the wedding. It's going to be a very long run to go back to shop in the middle of service to make that swap out. And we do have situations where we are having to make those last minute runs because they haven't afforded themselves the flexibility of those few extra units that make a big difference.
Okay, I am completely overwhelmed, guys. Like if you're asking me to try to figure this out, I'm gonna go, oh my gosh, there's too much. Like who is connecting those things between rentals and your wedding plan? So like I know like you were talking, you're working with your client, right? Where you're like, this is how much rental you need. This is the rentals you need. And reviewing those contracts. How does that work? Who is kind of connecting those pieces between the wedding and the rentals?
So, in an ideal world, if you have a wedding planner, that person will be the one to talk directly with the rental company. They know your vision, they know what you like. So, for me, it's just tell me what type of chair you want. Like, logistically, I will figure out how many you need because it's also you need chairs for ceremony, you need chairs for reception. A lot of people think they're going to just move it, but who's moving those chairs? Are you having the rental company stay and now we're paying for labor to move it? Or are we just renting enough to have at both sites? It's also, again, like what kind of plates do you want? What's your lighting? We will work with the company to figure out how much lighting do you need? Where should it go? Working on the layout, right? So again, a lot of it is very overwhelming. That's the benefit of working with a team to go through exactly what you need, add that buffer, make sure that you have what you need for vendors. Your DJ would likely need a table. They will need to be under a tent. So if you have no tent or if you have him outside, he may need a tent of his own. They'll need chairs, they'll need lighting in that tent, right? So what are the little details that all of your vendors need? Some caterers need trays and jack stands, some don't. So just figuring it out. If you are a videographer, you need to be near power. Now, if you're at a venue with no power, we need generators and how much power.
And probably a backup generator, right? I think often we'll get somebody who orders a single generator and sure, that might be enough to run your DJ and any other ancillary lighting. But then you get down the line, and if that generator blows, you have a really big problem. So I often recommend do a backup generator. Really, the peace of mind, again, it's worth having. And often you get to the point that the power draw is actually more significant than you think, or your floor plan is such that your lighting sources are on the opposite sides of the venue and you can't run off a single source. So it's really important to make sure you've thought about your generator plan and that you've got your electrical needs sorted.
I actually know that the wedding coordinator works really closely with the rental company because I've seen it when you have DIY weddings and they don't have that knowledge. I think that that's something that I always notice though, is when you have a coordinator, they are going to go line item by line item to make sure that you have everything that you need. And they're working directly with the rental company to make sure that everything is good to go. And there's a lot of things. I see this, we have a photo booth as part of our company. That's always one of those things where we do need power. We do need tenting in case it rains. And that's something that, again, it's such an important collaboration to work with professionals that know what is needed and to make sure that that order is correct for that wedding day.
And honestly, out of every vendor that I go through with my clients, the rentals are always the most overwhelming for them.
Absolutely. And in our organization, our sales team works quite often with the established meeting planner or event planner, and we love that because they certainly understand the specifics about the venue and they have the knowledge to know exactly how many different elements they're needing to bring in to satisfy the event. They think about power, they think about oversets and the other important things that you have to have. Now, that being said, we work all the time with first-time brides and grooms who are new to this process. I mean, they are accountants and dentists and they do all these other things in the universe, and we don't expect them to be masters of wedding planning. My expectation of our sales team is that they're working with that individual to help them achieve their very best and get that order right. We have the expertise also to try and guide them through their choices. We have the expertise to know the venue and know the different components of a wedding. So our team should also be asking, what about those garbage bins? What about having an extra 5% overset? So your ideal event rental company is coming to the table to support that bride or groom if they're making that order individually also.
All right, we talked about the big stuff. We talked about the things that people forget. Let's talk about some of the unique things, because what I love about your company is you guys actually have a lot of really beautiful specialty rentals, couches, lounges, and like just all these cool accent pieces. Let's talk about that, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that this can all be rented under the same roof.
Absolutely. So lounge has been a huge trend in weddings, right? And we've all seen it Pinterested all over the place. So, our company does provide lounge in addition to the tents and the chairs and all those things. And I absolutely recommend adding a lounge element to your wedding. Everybody's feet hurt. They want a place that's comfortable to sit down. It makes for great photo ops.
Totally.
It is just such an immersive, welcoming environment to have that at your event. I recommend doing like 2 sets when you can. But remember the little touches. Often people are like, I'm going to get the couch, I'm going to get the chair. But they forget about the throw pillows. And that's a great place where you can add your colors, for instance. They forget about the carpet. A carpet completely game changes that lounge experience. So add those pieces also to really get that full lounge vibe. So some of the other little touches, like we focus on the big stuff. I like to think about tablescape. Tablescape is like what's on your table and how it looks, right? And that's been a huge trend this year for personalization. So we see colored goblets. We see going with a gold flatware instead of a traditional flatware. We have black. We have all kinds of beautiful elements. Personalized napkins, for instance, embroidery. Anything you can do to change up that tablescape, that's a great place to invest your money. Because frankly, what you're spending in adding the goblets is minimal and really changes the look, the aesthetic of that table experience. That's my favorite place to add little pieces of value to the overall wedding.
I love drinking out of a goblet too, guys. Like it's like, I feel like so empowered and like
it
so
just makes your beverage taste better.
It does, right?
Agree. And I like adding value on the table. You know, like I like a lounge, but I feel like not everyone is going to sit at that lounge. Whereas if you have the beautiful flatware, if you have the beautiful tablescape, it's an impact for everyone to enjoy.
And chargers. I mean, chargers elevate every table experience, and I always really suggest those.
I love chargers.
Tessa, I am going to be sitting at the lounge with my goblet, so you can go and say
by yourself,
whatever.
Though,
but doesn't matter.
Are you going to get off, or are you going to hoard it so no one else can sit on it?
I might be even using your goblet. So I'll be a double goblet.
Okay, so speaking of drinking here, let's talk about the bar experience.
Yeah.
So I love a bar with personality. And there's certainly a trend in creating these really impressive bar experiences, whether you're using different materials from metals to woods to, we see all kinds of different products here on Oahu and on Maui. Think about your bar and think about your back bar. You don't just want to do the couple of tables behind that they can service from. Create a beautiful back bar experience and you can personalize it. I've seen, photos of the bride and groom peppered on that back wall and everything. It's a great way to add some elegance and sophistication to your event or just make it more playful. Even going down to, and this is not in the world of rentals, but personalize your cocktail menu. You can have different beverages that come in different glasses that tell different stories of your travels or your personal experiences. My sister, her name is Rose, and she married a gentleman with the last name Wood. So she's like officially Rosewood now. When we were doing her wedding, we made this like rosewood cocktail and it was in this gorgeous pink goblet and it just like all came together. So those touches are impactful. Have the menu displayed at the bar, make that whole bar experience something that people talk about after the wedding.
Amazing. And again, you can use a lot of the rental items to elevate, right? Bar fronts, the glassware, the backdrop, like all of that are things that can be rented.
And customization is huge right now. So obviously we've got a lot of like standard, whether it's a white bar, a wood bar, or if it's a plexi bar. Huge right now is adding a custom decal. So taking a vinyl and putting it on the front, you can put your own logo on, you can put, say you're doing a certain palette of colors or a design on your invitation, carry that forward and put it on the front of your bar, put it on your menus, use that little story, that narrative right throughout your wedding experience from the very first invitation they receive to the very end. And I love doing vinyl to make that happen.
Man, and that is a great way to end this episode, Gabby. I'm so thankful that you were here. I feel like we learned a lot. I definitely feel like we overwhelmed Joe a bit.
Yeah, that's easy to do though.
With the rentals, but I think again, right, if you work with a professional rental company, they will help you keep things on track, make sure that you get what you need. So with that, can you tell us where we can find you, your company? Where are you?
Absolutely. So, I really want to impress that at Accel, our sales team, our whole team, we care. We want you to have your perfect experience. And our sales team is going to work with, whether it's a planner or an individual bride and groom, to make that magic happen for them. We are available at accelrentals.com. And like I said, we've got full operations on Oahu and on Maui. We do service neighbor islands for the right event if the timing works out. But we're honored to work in this wedding ecosystem. And thank you guys. I love what you're doing for our industry here. Yay. And I'm a big fan. Thanks for having me today.
Who's your favorite planner?
Don't make me go there, Tessa.
Podcast planner, Joe, of course.
All right, thank you. Gotta go.
All right, and thanks, guys, for listening today. This was super helpful. I know that planning a wedding can be overwhelming, and we are here for you guys to try to figure out how to make it through that without losing your marbles. And as always... You like
My
that?
marbles are lost.
You like that? Okay.
I do.
And always make sure you guys send us your questions. We want to hear from you guys, and we love talking about what you want to hear about.
And what we want to hear about.
Well, And with that, we will see you guys again on another show.
See you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unveiling Paradise.
If you enjoy our show, please follow us and rate us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would really mean a lot.
And don't forget to also get on our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. Just do it already.
Until next time, this is Tessa.
And this is Joe.
And don't forget, your happily ever after
is just a plane ride away.